Ladies and gentlemen, Genesis is committed to providing excellent luxury sedans, something that Lexus has been faltering on. They killed the GS in 2021 or so. The Lexus LS is all but relevant, and the G90 is pretty much better now, except that the LS is actually the bargain buy compared to the G90s. It's crazy. That's the world we're living in. And the Lexus ES is fantastic, but that's more of a true luxury, not rear wheel drive. It's front wheel drive. And we'll talk a little bit about the ES maybe afterwards and how it could compete with the new G80. And then the IS is more of a competitor to the G70, and it is a very good competitor to it. But Lexus has no competition to the G80 ever since the cancellation of the beloved GS. Even though the ES is about the same size, like I said, it's not in the same performance class. So I want to go over this new G80 today, and I am quite impressed. Guys, if you're new to the channel, my name's Kirk. I talk about industry auto news. If you're into that, make sure to subscribe. We're coming on a new year. That means tons of new car news, reveals. I'll be doing lots of car reviews as well. So let's get into the refreshed G80. Now, I believe this model came out as a 2021 model year. Official launch is slated for December of 2023. Now, this is from the Seoul newsroom. It's going to be a little bit later here in North America, more than likely. In the meantime, the electric G80 on the pre-refresh has just got a $5,380 price reduction, mainly because they're adding an entry-level advanced model. It's still going to be pretty much loaded. That comes in at $75K, and the top spec is actually a little bit cheaper than last year's. The Prestige coming at $630 less expensive. You know, here's the thing. I wish they made a slightly less powerful version for maybe 10 to 15K less, but I think Genesis has such a good advantage here in this segment on a pricing point compared to the Germans that it doesn't matter. They're pretty much beating them. There's also a G80 Performance coming to the Middle East. I believe it's only like 20 units. Yeah, 20 models. So don't think that this is something to get excited for in just about anywhere else in the world. Korea probably doesn't even get this sort of G80 performance, even though I would assume it's still the twin-turbo V6. All right, so let's get back to the press room. So we have a big screen upgrade here, a 27-inch OLED. So let's get into the side-by-side images of pre-refresh and post-refresh. All right, so the G80, if you guys have missed my review, the most recent one I did was the electric G80. I adore that vehicle. And so what we're looking at is pre-refresh on the bottom and refresh up here at the top. So let's start with the center display. So instead of having two separate displays here, one that's built into the dash and one that sits in front of this dash, we have an entire 27-inch OLED display. So the screen quality is going to go up, even though I had no issues with this screen quality. So now we have a 27-inch OLED display, and it is just one big screen. That is not what's like impressive to me. Here's the thing, even though this is far more aesthetically pleasing, in my opinion, having the screen melt into the dash, this setup here, where the screen sits on top of the dash, is more functional. And the reason is this screen is now a lot closer. In theory, it is closer to the driver. So in order for you to touch it, it is not that big of a hassle for you to get out of your seat. I'm not going to lie, especially the instrument cluster behind the steering wheel, how it's tucked away. This looks a lot better instead of just sitting a nice big screen. At least it's OLED, so it's going to be pretty, but yeah, this is not as aesthetically pleasing as what we see here. It's almost a step back in aesthetics and a step forward in ergonomics. There's always a give and a take, right? Also, the dash, guys, are they getting rid of the wood? That's one of the best things about the G80 is the wood or the fake wood, and the G80 electric, it's really gorgeous. I don't have that same sort of material here that makes it feel a little bit more earthy, a little bit more touch-like. This is kind of like this, it could be wood, but it almost looks like aluminum from this image, and compared to the nice poured wood, the textured wood here down at the bottom. Now, they've also changed a couple things. Look at the dials. The dial here is no longer, well, it's raised. It's the same sort of technology. It's just a different interface. I actually don't like this setup, the new setup. And the reason is that both of these are about the same size and they're both rotary dials. So when I get into a Genesis that has two rotary dials right next to each other, sometimes I'm twisting this one to put it into drive or reverse instead of the actual drive knob. So they've revised the crystal one a little bit. I can't tell you if I like it better or not because the images aren't high quality enough, but I actually prefer the old setup here better than the new setup. All right, climate control has changed. What do I think about it? I can't tell if these are actual buttons or touch capacitive, but however, we have a volume knob here and a tuning knob. Previously, they were down here. These are the scrolly wheels is what I call them. And I prefer actually the volume knob. So even though I like the drive setup better here, I like the volume setup better on this setup. I think this is generally the same. You know, these climate control knobs have actually gotten smaller. I think it's so that they can fit in the volume and tuning knob here. You know what? I think this actually looks better here at the bottom. This is more functional. This is more aesthetically pleasing. All right, we need to address the steering wheel as well. I totally forgot to do that. I really like the outgoing Genesis steering wheels. I like this two-tone action that we have. I like this cutout on the bottom. I can just rest my hand, my elbow on the armrest, either one of them, and rest my hand right at the bottom of the steering wheel. That luxury feature for me has been taken away. We have this exterior portion of the steering wheel. It looks actually a lot more Mazda CX-90 with this sort of double layer on the outside of the steering wheel. But in terms of functionality, again, I would prefer this sort of setup. I even like resting my hand or my fingers in this little cutout on each side too. All right, besides where you place your hands, what else is going on here? The controls. Well, the controls have gone a little bit more simple, and this is glossy black plastic, which doesn't look nearly as nice as the paint-matched buttons and the aluminum stuff that we have going on. This almost looks like Mercedes-Benz with this little touch capacitive nipple. I don't know what else to call it. It's a little joypad right here on the steering wheel. I'm not liking it as much. This looks more Hyundai to me, a little bit more downscale with these buttons and controls on the steering wheel compared to this setup. But that's just me. You guys might like this setup better just due to the overall design of the steering wheel. Some people hate this oval portion. I like it. It's unique and it's very ergonomic to me. So yeah, the G80's interior, it's still gorgeous. Yeah, the door panels have changed a little bit too, like the speaker grill covers and whatnot, but it's mostly very similar. So the G80 has gone up in ergonomics, but maybe down in aesthetics, at least on the inside. Is it still nicer than its competition on the inside? Probably. You know, this is maybe a cleaner design, just more straight lines and just more basic, more Volvo-esque, where this is definitely more Bentley-esque. So they're just taking a different design direction, even though the new one, not as quite as regal, still very practical. Now, we also need to get into the exterior design changes. All right. And I am actually pretty happy. You know, I'm actually getting vibes maybe here of the new Camry with this extra little shark gill right here on the side, but it looks pretty good. And they've de-emphasized the lower portion of the grille here. And I feel like anyways, because it's not as wide. They've made it smaller. And so I do think it looks better in that regard. They've also changed the chain link pattern that you see here that looks good, but it's also a little cheap-ish because it's just very basic and there's a lot of it. It just looks like a chain link fence, the shiny one. I like this a lot more. The parallel lines, which is a lot more in line with their parallel philosophy with their headlights, the daytime running lights, these parallel lines on the back, as well as the parallel rear tail light. So I feel like this is much more cohesive with their overall design. You still have the radar badge kind of tucked into the front grille area. The Genesis badge also looks the same, but I do like the looks of the new standard model because this is more the luxury grade, because they also have a sport front bumper that changes a little bit too. There we go. And compared to the new one, and yeah, the wheel designs look the same. It's hard to see from this image, but they've given it more depth with this, the new grille, even though the pattern's wider on the new grille, even though we have a tighter pattern down here, but there's more depth. So if you walk up close to it, you'll be able to see an interlaced pattern on the inside, which is definitely more luxurious in my opinion. All right, let's compare the bottom portions of the grille. It's bigger. Especially in the middle portion, we have an additional mouth here. This almost looks like a nose. Now that I'm actually seeing a face now where I didn't before. So we have eyes here, a big nose, and a big mouth right here. And this is kind of like its cheeks. So it has more of a face, but overall design, I think it's kind of a side grade. I don't think it's that much better, to be honest, with the Sport grille. I think the new grille with the standard model, this one, is an absolute home run. It doesn't try to do too much, where the Sport grille is just a little over the top for me. This is too new Sonata for me with this big angular portion here. I think this looks a lot more elegant and regal. So that's the route I would be going instead of getting the Sport model. There's also a newly added Brooklyn Brown for an exterior color. That's just one of 10 exterior colors and 4 interior color options. And I actually forgot to go over the rear of the car. So check this out. They've hidden the exhaust tips unless it's the Sport model from my understanding. And I don't like the rear as much. I like these exhaust tips on the back. But I guess they're trying to just homologize or make all of them look like the electric model would be my guess going forward. This doesn't look as good. That is completely subjective. You do have these additional curves right here in the edge of the bumper that we don't hear, where the lines just kind of wrap around, which is kind of, I don't know. I like the rear of the outgoing model a lot better. But the taillights are the same, and man, no exhaust tips, even with like, it's not what I want to see. But so the G80 doesn't have a lot of direct competition from its Asian competitors. Infiniti doesn't have a large sedan anymore, let alone a flagship sedan. Acura's TLX is more of a G70 competitor. Lexus GS is gone, but the Lexus ES is going to get a redesign fairly soon, right behind the Camry, right? Now, it should still be a front-wheel drive platform, the ES. But what the ES can do, what the G80 cannot, is provide new levels of electrification. At least Genesis is not interested in hybridization. They would rather have full electric, and they want to be fully electric. I think starting in 2025, all newly introduced models, new redesign Genesis models will be fully electric. Lexus, on the other hand, they want to be fully electric by 2030. So they got a 5-year buffer, and the ES, which is going to have to carry the load for the discontinued GS, can definitely use plug-in hybrid technology and plug-in hybrid sport performance that Genesis can't quite do or decides not to do because they would rather be fully electric. Now, the ES also goes back to Japan for production probably at the end of next year. So end of 2024. That means as we go into 2025, we'll have a new Lexus ES and expect plug-in hybrid technology, maybe fully electric. I don't want to bank on that though, because fully electric in America, it's best if you make it here so you qualify for the EV tax credit. But since it's a luxury car, it might not anyway, since the cap on sedans is about $55,000 to qualify for the EV tax credit. So they might just make it in Japan regardless. So yeah, I mean, the G80 is fantastic. The G80 sedan is probably my favorite electric vehicle that I've driven. And the twin turbo V6 variant and the turbo 4-cylinder variants are fantastic as well. So Genesis did the right thing here, updated the electronics in the interior, which they really didn't need to do. They've updated the exterior, which I like most of the updated exterior design choices. And it's also you guys down below on that. Thank you for watching. Long live the Genesis G80. The rumors are that Genesis could kill off the G70, which would be a travesty. But, you know, with the killing of its stablemate, or you say platform mate, the Stinger, maybe the Kia Stinger was a precursor or foreshadowing of the G70 being killed. Maybe it'll come back as an electric car. I don't know. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. If you made it this far, hit the like button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.